This is the rear of 1309 Gateview Avenue. It has fabulous views of the bay. But look how broken down it is. I believe there were people living in there at the time. Old Westside Drive follows the perimeter path starting here, but I didn't know that when I shot this video. (1325) Old Westside Drive. That's Gateview Avenue. I have to go down Gateview, actually. Those are not the fish streets. Gateview Avenue is farther west than the fish streets. And lo and behold, that's 1325 Old Westside Drive, and it becomes very important later. I didn't know at the time that that was the biggest cleanup zone on the island. That was the Westside Solid Waste Disposal Area, otherwise known as a toxic dump. A road closed ahead sign. There, in fact, is a radioactivity sign. Past the sign on this hazardous waste area. Yep, that's what we're looking at. That is either Sturgeon Court or Halliburton Court. In fact, it was neither. I did not know at the time that that was the Westside Solid Waste Disposal Area, the largest cleanup zone on Treasure Island. Notice the yellow radiation sign inside the fence. No one was allowed in there because the radiation levels were off the charts. At the time, I wanted to continue on the perimeter path because the views were so beautiful. But I took note of the yellow radiation sign. I knew that was dangerous. At the time, the Navy owned Treasure Island, and that really was private property of the Navy. The views really were spectacular. That is the city of San Francisco. Here, I was shooting into this area trying to understand what was going on. There was equipment in there, and there were earth movers beeping. But notice how close that townhouse was to the fence. I'm trying to get a zoom shot in there so I can catch the equipment and see what it was. Again, notice how close this townhouse was to the cleanup zone. I didn't know it at the time, but 7 years earlier in 2007, someone I met later had lived in 1325A Old West Side Drive, right next to that cleanup zone, and got violently ill for life from exposure to radiation. So all those radiation signs didn't do her much good. She used to come out here in the morning with a cup of coffee and sit and look at the beautiful bay. At this point, I'm walking back past the Gateview Avenue townhouses. That is a zoom shot of Yerba Buena Island. And that's the Willie Brown span of the Bay Bridge.